What is up, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the Crazy Tube Circuits UNOBTANIUM. This is a really cool dual pedal that covers some rather unobtainable circuits. One being the one that has a horsey on it, the pedal. The other being a couple of amplifiers that are pretty hard to find. That would be the Dumble Overdrive Special and the Dumble Steel String Singer. Now, I guess they're not hard to find. You can find them. You can find a silver Klon. You can find an ODS or a Steel String Singer. Obtaining one is an absolutely different story, and I'm assuming that's why this is called the UNOBTANIUM. But I digress. It's a dual pedal, as I mentioned. The right side of the pedal covers a Klon circuit. Very close, at least to my ears, to like a silver Klon. I used to have one. It's very close. And there's some additional little mods we'll talk about in just a second. The other side of the pedal, the left side of the pedal, covers two different Dumble style circuits. So the Steel String Singer and the Overdrive Special. And we'll get into how those two circuits sound in the demo. Let's get right into what's on the top of the pedal. On the right side, as I mentioned, is that Klon circuit. So you have volume, gain, and treble, just like you would see on a Klon circuit. But Crazy Tube Circuits has added some cool features. On a normal Klon, a stock Klon, the buffer is always on. In this case, it's really cool. You can shut the buffer off and have it be true bypass. That's great. It's not something that you're going to notice in the demo. I will turn it on and off, but it is there. At least when I had my Klon, the buffer didn't bother me. But in certain instances, if there was something before or after the pedal, it could get a little problematic. So it's nice to be able to turn that off. And you also have another switch called stock, and I'm assuming modified. In the stock position, it's just like a Klon circuit. In the modified position, it's a little bit different. We'll get into how that sounds in the demo, but it's a very cool feature. On the other side of the pedal, the left side of the pedal, that's the one that covers the two different Dumble style circuits. So as I mentioned before, ODS and Steel String Singer, you have your volume, gain, tone, and another control called emphasis, and we'll get into how that sounds in the demo. There's a switch there that allows you to choose between the Overdrive Special circuit and the Steel String Singer circuit. We'll get into that. Now, one really cool feature amongst quite a few is you can actually switch the between the Steel String Singer and the ODS via a foot switch. So that's this foot switch here that I'm assuming is sold separately, but if you did want to be able to toggle between those via foot switch, you can do that, and the jack for that is on the side of the pedal. So that's a cool feature. There are obviously two foot switches on the bottom of the pedal. One turns the Klon side on and off, the other turns the more Dumble side on and off. They can be used independently of each other or together. We'll get into how that sounds in the demo. And the last thing I want to point out is it does have an insert between the Klon side and the Dumble side. So if you've got things you want to put in there like reverbs or delays or even mod effects and you want to have them after the Klon circuit, you can do that as well. Really, really cool. The last thing I want to point out is on the inside of the pedal, there's two mini potentiometers. One is for the Dumble side. It basically allows you to kind of tailor the low end for the steel string singer circuit, because you know a lot of Dumbles were different. They weren't all the same. Even if it was a bunch of steel string singers, they all were slightly different. So you can kind of tailor that. I left that stock. There's also another potentiometer in there that allows you to boost the ODS circuit. Now I did turn that up just a little bit. It's very cool, but essentially if you wanted to turn that up quite a bit, when you toggle between with the foot switch, when you toggle between the steel string singer and the ODS, you can actually have the ODS boost a bit, which is once again a really cool feature. So let's get into how this thing sounds. It's the Crazy Tube Circuits Unobtainium. Okay, so let's get started. Here's just the guitar into the amp for reference. I've got it dialed relatively clean so we can have the pedal do all the work. Let's start with the right side, which is the more kind of Klon side of the pedal. I've got it dialed the way I would normally use a Klon. Okay, so just, you know, playing my usual sloppy noodling and changing the gain control just a little bit. This side of the pedal, I used to have a silver Klon, and that's what this reminds me of. There were subtle differences between like a silver Klon and a gold Klon. I won't go into all of that, but I had the silver one, and this definitely reminds me of that. Right now I have it set up in the more kind of stock configuration, other than I don't have the buffer on. Honestly, the buffer's a cool thing, but the only problem I ever had with the buffer is it would argue with other pedals occasionally, so that's what's so great about having that. You can shut it off if you do run into those types of issues. Right now it's in true bypass, so the buffer is off. You won't really hear it if I turn it on. It's very subtle, maybe just a little bit of maybe top end difference, but that's a really great feature. I do have it in the stock mode. If we throw it to the modified, it's less noticeable unless you have the gain up. So right now we're in the stock mode. Seems like there's a little bit more saturation there, maybe a little bit more low end. So it's a handy feature if you just want it to be a bit more saturated, maybe a little bit more low end. I'm going to put it back to stock and let's just check out the gain. I mean, I really like running the gain lower on a Klon style pedal. And if anything, just push the amp harder. So right there with the volume up, you can hear that mod setting. More low end. So I mean, I like to run it that way, pushing the amp. But we can turn the volume down a bit and just kind of gun the gain off. Noon, and then all the way up. I'll put it back to stock. With the gain all the way up, I like the stock mode better. But there's definitely more low end in that mod setting, so it's really to each his own, but that's the gain range. I'm going to sweep the treble really quick. And as I mentioned before, it's really similar to, at least to my ears, to a silver Klon, as far as the way everything is voiced. Here's treble off. Treble at noon. Treble all the way up. I like it about right there, because then it works great with like a back humbucker, but still sounds really good neck position. Okay, so that's the more kind of Klon side of the pedal. Now let's bump over to the more kind of Dumble-esque side. I'm going to start in the steel string singer setting, and we'll kind of go from there. So just for reference, amp, and then we'll turn on the left side of the pedal. Okay, so cool. I started on the steel string singer. Now, you didn't see me throw the switch because I actually have a foot switch hooked up that allows you to choose between the two, so we can toggle back and forth. So when it's red, that's the ODS or Overdrive Special. When it's essentially white, then it's the steel string singer. So let's just start on the steel string singer. I rolled the gain all the way up and down, so we kind of know what's going on there. So gain back. the way up. Now, the one thing that did surprise me about having the gain all the way up is it stayed together really well. Let's look at this emphasis. Here's all the way off. All the way up. I really like that control because it kind of changes characteristics in the mids and even in the top as you roll it up and down. Like all the way off, it's not like a mid control. It's not like all of a sudden the mids are scooped out. Noon, as you get it up around like 2 o'clock, that's when you start hearing this kind of mid characteristic and top end, and then all the way up. That would be really cool, especially in a mix. So that's a really cool setting. That's how that sounds. The tone is more self-explanatory. Off. Noon. And then all the way up. Gets pretty stringy. This would be really nice, almost as an always on, if you want to just really chimey. That's kind of cool. We can still push the amp harder as well with the gain down. But I like the Klon side more for that, but you can certainly do it with this side. Okay, so I'll put everything somewhat kind of back to, let's try about right here. I'm going to bump to the ODS now. And as I said, I don't have to hit the switch because I have a foot switch plugged in, which is a really nice feature. Now the ODS sounds a little bit darker. It's going to work better for a solo voice. For me, I would want to turn that emphasis up a little bit. Maybe a little brighter. And then as I add gain, now if we bump back and forth, here's the steel string singer. Here's the ODS. More low end, more saturated, maybe just a little darker. And then of course you can use these together. So the way I would use these together is I would dial up the Klon side, maybe with less gain, about right there. Maybe just a little darker. Yeah, maybe about right there. And then if I'm going to add this side to it, I would probably start with, yeah, the steel string singer side. So just right there, I was able to foot switch between like a rhythm sound with a Klon into a solo sound, into another solo sound by employing the other switch to get me back and forth between the steel string singer and the overdrive side or ODS side. So that is the Unobtainium. It's a really well thought out pedal. It's very intuitive to dial in. If you've got any further questions about it, definitely go to the website. I'll have a link below that links to the website so you can check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.